There's nothing worse than hitting the next training session and you get to it and your legs are tired or your arms feel tired or you just don't feel up for it. There's some really basic rules to think about. Rule 1 is think about how you're going to get energy back into the body after the training session. And the simple rule is this, that as soon as you stop training, within 60 minutes of completing that, you need to refuel the body using carbohydrate. If you get it within 60 minutes, then we're looking at getting almost all the carbohydrate that you've used back within 24 hours. If you leave it longer than 60 minutes, we're looking at 72 hours. So that has a massive knock-on effect if we're doing subsequent training sessions. The second thing to think about is what are you going to do immediately post the training session? In other words, you've finished and you've stopped. Do you just stop or do you do something? Well, of course, the key thing is we've got to do something. And what we have to do is think about getting rid of any of the metabolites, so the waste products that have been formed, things like lactic acid, starting to promote the recovery process. And we do this using active recovery. The worst thing to do is just stop or to stand still. It feels great. You finish the session, I can stand still. Actually, what we need you to do is to get moving. And the research informs us quite nicely that the optimal recovery occurs at a heart rate of about 140 beats per minute. So what you need to do is exercise for no less than 6 minutes, no longer than 10 minutes, maintaining that heart rate, because we know that if the heart is at about 140 beats per minute, it gets oxygenated blood going to the muscles, and that oxygenated blood helps then in the removal of things like the lactic acid. If it's too low, we don't get optimal heart rates. If it's too high, you're actually working too hard and not recovering. Coupled with that, then you need to think about what else you do in that recovery process. Do you do, for example, stretching exercises? It's advised, but it's not mandatory. And certainly don't think about doing flexibility exercises as soon as you've stopped. Because what happens is, if you do the flexibility and the stretching after the training session, all you're doing is holding the waste products in the muscle. They're not going anywhere. So do the active recovery first, and then go into doing those kind of stretching-based exercises. Think about keeping warm. So the whole idea of this is that these metabolic processes that are going to enable you to recover only work efficiently if you keep the core temperature of the body up. So in other words, you keep warm. So get your jackets back on, get your leggings back on, get your gloves back on. Think about the fact that you lose a lot of heat through the head. So put a woolly hat on or a cap on. Keeping the core temperature up while you're doing the recovery is only going to be beneficial. And the key thing to remember is, for example, if you've done a training session and you go and have a shower after the session, then actually, although you feel warm, what you've done is you've now cooled the body down. And so when you go outside, and particularly we're getting into December and January, it's cold. You're suddenly going to start to lose a lot of heat. So again, think about, I've got to keep warm. And all of this is going to aid in your ability to recover from any of these sessions, whether it's a gym session or whether it's an endurance running session.